Hey, and welcome to FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast, a podcast for people who want to get no BS information about fitness and know that fitness is about so much more than losing scale weight. It's about feeling confident in your skin and empowered in your life. I'm your host, Turo Virta, personal trainer, strength and nutrition coach, and most of all, a husband of my beautiful wife, Miriam. Each week, my guests and me will give you some no BS fitness tips and motivate you to take action in your own personal fitness journey as we talk about nutrition, exercise, mindset, personal development, and executing in life with enjoyable but still effective strategies. If your goal is to look better, feel and be strong and experience transformation from inside out, you, my friend, are in the right place. Thank you for jumping in. And now let's jump into today's episode. So Jordan Syatt, today's FitMitTuro Fitness episode is the episode I have been personally probably the most excited to record. Jordan is a person who I have always looked up to, and he has affected me probably the most, not only become a better coach, but to become a better human being. I learned so much being in his online fitness mentorship program, and I can't thank him enough for all work, what he's doing in his social media, helping with people with their fitness. So welcome to my show, Jordan.
Thank you for having me, brother. It's great to finally see you and talk to you. It's been a while, and I appreciate the kind words, and I'm very glad to be here and to have the opportunity to speak with you.
Awesome. So I'm always interested to know about the story. So where you are coming from and why you are doing things, what you are currently doing. So tell me a little bit about your childhood. Like if you go, like you don't have to start like when you were like 2 years old or something, but a little bit about your childhood and relationship with health and fitness.
Yeah, so I started getting into health and fitness from wrestling. And I started wrestling when I was 8 years old, and my entire family has been overweight and unhealthy for generations, and no one's really focused on health or fitness. And so I think early on that caught my attention. And then when I started wrestling, I just got obsessed with it. I absolutely fell in love with it. And because of that, I started really focusing more on my health and my nutrition, strength training. And by the time I got to high school, my first year of high school, I ended up making varsity as my first year in high school. And I had to cut a lot of weight and I had to get a lot stronger because I was 14 years old and I was going up against mainly 17 and 18-year-olds. And there's a huge strength differential. And so I ended up applying to a gym a couple towns over from me. I grew up in Boston, outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And I applied to a gym. I just said, listen, I'll take the trash out. I'll clean the floor. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Just let me come and intern and learn from you. And I was very blessed and fortunate because they took me under their wing and they let me intern there. And they were also very science-based, like very, very science-based, which now is getting more and more common. But back then in 2005, 2006, it was not very common to have a very science-based gym. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, that's what I've wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be a coach ever since then. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with not just working out. I think one of the issues that a lot of coaches have, one of the reasons a lot of coaches burn out is because they don't actually like coaching people. They just like working out. And I fell in love with coaching people. I fell in love with the process of trying to help someone go from where they were to where they wanted to be, and understanding that their journey wouldn't look like my journey, and it might be longer, it might be more difficult, maybe they're not going to enjoy it as much as I enjoy it, but that's part of what I loved. Like I loved the challenge of doing that and seeing the progress. So I've been doing it ever since.
Awesome. No, this is usually how it's getting started. So how was your relationship with your parents? Like what kind of parents you had?
So my parents, between themselves, had a very explosive relationship. It was not a very good marriage at all. And I remember all through my childhood just thinking, like, I just hope they get divorced. Like, I really wanted them to, because it was awful in the house. And I was very close with my mom and not close with my dad. So even now, I haven't spoken to my dad in probably about 10 years or so. And even then, like, it wasn't a good conversation. So like, I don't really have a relationship with my father. With my mother, I'm very close. Like I'm like extra close with my mom, I think, because of that. My mom has always been unbelievably supportive. And we've definitely had our differences and we've had our arguments and all of that. But I think one of the best things about my mom is she always encouraged me to go do things that most other parents were not okay with. So for example, at 14 years old, she let me go and work at a gym and intern for free after school. And a lot of parents would be like, absolutely not. Like, you're going to be home, you're going to do your homework. And my mom saw that this is something that I was really drawn to and passionate about. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, let's make this happen. And after high school, I didn't want to go to college right away. And so I went to Israel and I traveled for a year and I volunteered with Holocaust survivors. And it was arguably the greatest year of my life. And I know a lot of parents gave my mom shit for that. And they were like, what are you doing? He should be going to college. Why are you having him do this? And she went through a lot of heartache in order to do what she thought was right for both my brother and I. So very, very close with my mom. And again, just because we're close doesn't mean we don't have arguments. Of course we have arguments, but like, we're very close. And at the end of an argument, we can always say, I love you so much. I'm here for you. And yeah, so I haven't spoken to my dad in a very long time, but my mom I'm very close with.
Yeah, August, this is I can relate this so much. Like I didn't have a very good relationship with my dad, or we had, but there was like when I went a little bit deeper on like why I'm doing, like why you are like me. We try to help people, as many as possible, and when you really like it, it was even hard to realize that where is that all coming from, and when I took a little bit, went deeper on myself, it was what I understood, that there was what I'm actually missing is love from my dad. Like I never got it, and he was always there. We didn't have probably that kind of relationship than you, but that was always kind of missing. And then now later on, you understand that that's actually that driving force then to show it to your. It's usually that missing love. What you wanted, here you go. I do everything what you can. So what was how do you think that now, when you just have a newborn daughter, and how those relationships what you had with your parents, how they affected your current situation as a father and a father as a
it's a great question. I think one of the things that I struggled with growing up was, I'll tell a story the best way I can explain the story. I think sometimes stories are a good way to get across what you want to get across. There are many reasons I don't have a relationship with my dad. But one of the things that I'm using as a way to model what I would like to be as a father is, I remember one time I was playing baseball and I was on a team and I was pitching, and my dad very rarely came to the games, like very rarely, maybe once or twice an entire season. And he wouldn't watch, like he wouldn't see the game. He'd be there, but he wouldn't be there. And I remember I was pitching and I kept looking off the mound into the stands, and he wasn't there. He was on the phone and he was just away, just talking to someone else, but he wasn't watching. This is one of those memories that, like, for whatever reason, it's just burned into my brain, and I'll remember it till the day I die. I don't remember anything about that day. I don't remember anything about that game. I don't remember anything about anything other than continually looking off the mound and seeing him not paying attention. And to be very honest, like that's not the reason why we don't have a relationship. Like, that's very small in comparison to the other things that I think we struggled with. But as a father and as a business owner and someone whose entire business is on my phone and computer and social media, I am acutely aware that I have a big issue with looking at my phone a lot. And I am trying my best. My daughter's only 9 months old, but I know she can see things. Like, she's aware. I'm doing my absolute best to make sure that when I'm with her, I'm not on my phone. And I know I'm going to make mistakes. I know there's going to be issues. And when she gets older, she's going to have things that I did poorly and wrong, and she's going to have all that. I think like every kid does about their parents. But one of the things that I really want to try and make an effort towards is making sure my kids know that I'm always there for them, and that regardless of work, regardless of whatever, it's like they're the priority. And so that is something that I'm really trying to make a concerted effort and to constantly have top of mind, understanding that the priority in my life is my children and my wife, and that's number one.
Yeah, I love it, because this is probably the best example, telling it like this way in a story. Like maybe it was at the time was for your dad was a small thing like that. He's just going to game, but if he was not there, never present. Like, and it's the same, like probably like nowadays, not only you, but so many people are struggling with that. You are kind of with your kids or family, but you are with your mind, you are somewhere else. And it really, because people recognize, even small kids, you might think that they don't see it, but like you said, you remember it the rest of your life. Even that was probably he won't remember that.
He would have no idea. Exactly.
Yeah. So even now from outside, it might looks like that you have a business is doing great, you have a family, everything, but as we both know, that's not the whole truth. That we are still humans and we have some fears, and those fears, they are probably all the time kind of changing. Like I just saw your recent post and your podcast episode. I think it's not published when we are recording this in Jordan Syatt mini podcast episode, but it really hit me home, and it's so relatable. But before going to that current situation, let's talk about a little bit your past fears and how you overcame them. So what kind of fears you remember having when you were younger and when you started, for example, in your online coaching business?
I think the biggest fear in my past had a lot to do with what we struggled with in my family growing up, which was money was always a huge issue. It was always a constant problem in the house. It was a huge source of stress. And I was very fearful that I would live my life and my family would live their lives in the same way that I did in my childhood, where money was always a problem. And I think that fear is honestly one of the things that drove the success of my business. Is seeing what that was like and experiencing it was enough for me to be like, I'm going to work so fucking hard because I really don't want that to be the case. And I know it's not trendy or popular to say nowadays. Nowadays, people are just say, well, do it because you love it. And I did love my work, and I still do love my work. But sometimes the love of my work isn't enough to light a fire under my ass to work when I don't feel like it. Like sometimes loving it isn't enough to get me to do it, because just because I love it doesn't mean I always want to do it. Right. Like I love working out, and I love how working out makes me feel, but I don't always want to work out. So same thing with business. I think especially early on, the fear of failing and the fear of not being able to provide for my family was really what lit the fire under me to work unbelievably hard.
And that led then, when you were able to make kind of income and you were kind of in secure place and financially, I remember you were talking about like that you were scared that what if you are losing it now? What if something happens to Instagram? You are huge in Instagram or in social media, and if somebody is closing down those platforms and you are suddenly without business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's the fear of my accounts being hacked, the fear of the, like, dude, even now, like, I think talk of World War III is more prevalent now than it has been since World War II. And I've always been interested in warfare, and especially World War II is a big thing for me. But there's a famous quote that I forget who said it, very famous. This man said to the effect of, he said, I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but I do know World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. And basically what he's alluding to is that the world will be so destroyed after World War III that will go back to like ground zero and just be like with sticks and stones, like we're going to have nothing. And if I'm thinking about World War III, a real potential, I know for a fact that it would start with technological warfare. It would start with cyber warfare, shutting down internet access, shutting down payment access, like to your online banking. Like that's how it would start. And so even that type of stuff scares the living shit out of me, because it's like, it doesn't matter how well you've done thus far, because if everything gets shut down, really all that matters is your ability to survive, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how much money you have in a bank that you can't access.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was kind of like a COVID thing, like what you are when you are used to for something, and then suddenly everything is taken away, and you gotta figure out kind of way to do it in another way. So, but this have shifted now. Like I said, you talk a little bit about your in your recent post, and in your probably in podcast episode, what is coming up soon, if it's not already up when this episode is out. So you were talking, would you mind telling a little bit, sharing about that story a little bit, what you shared in that podcast episode, what you are scared, what is your biggest fear right now?
Yeah, so I was just on my own podcast, and I had someone interviewing me, and basically my biggest fear that I have experienced lately is, since the birth of my daughter, is this immense fear of dying. And it's whether it's the fear of me dying or my daughter dying or my wife dying, like any of those are very scary for me. I think the worst one would be potentially my daughter dying. That I think is like the worst of the worst of the worst. But like the one that I was talking about on the podcast was the fear of me dying. And it's not the fear of my daughter wouldn't know me. That's not the fear that I have. It's more, there's the fear of me not knowing her, right? The fear of not being able to watch her grow and to watch her go through all the stages of life, and then to whatever she wants to do. It's not being able to watch her as she gets older is devastatingly scary. And then also the idea, like, if I were to die, I would very much want my wife to find someone, but understanding that my daughter's new father figure wouldn't be me, and knowing that nobody could ever love her as much as I do. That's fucking scary, bro.
Oh yeah, that's but that's so true, and it's so scary. So what is, if you what are you doing against those fears? What do you have? Like, obviously they are shifting, they are changing. Do you have some tactics or strategies how you fight against them?
I mean, I think for me, and I'm no expert, is I try and recognize that they're there and understand that I can't really do anything about it, right? Like it's like, cool, like here's the fear, and I understand it's a real fear, but what do I do now? Do I just sit down and just think about it all the time, or like do I continue to live my life? And that's the vast majority of what I do. Like, I'll recognize the fear. It sucks. I hate it, but it's there. But I try and just continue living, because if I'm not living and enjoying the moment, then I might as well be dead, right? It's like if you can't live and enjoy, then you're already dead anyway. You're not actually living.
Yeah. No, that it's you gotta, like, what I like. I have also, like, I think my biggest motivation is I lost my dad a couple months ago, and he was only no worries. He was sick very very long, and it's like 5 months ago, and he was at the age of 70 and having several health issues. Like, even he was living last like 5-6 years basically just in hospital, not going nowhere. And that is, for me, like, the biggest fear is losing my health. And what I'm doing, like, this is on the other side, I turn it on my motivation to take action, getting my walks in, doing my workouts, trying to eat as healthy as I can. So I increase my possibilities and chances to have to become healthier and not end up like that. So it's basically, you just have to face them somehow, and keep going, keep taking that action, and do not think too much about that fear. So what you would tell to someone, like let's say now to a little bit fitness topic, that somebody who is having a fear, like for example, gaining all lost weight back or losing all progress they have made with their hard work.
That their fear is losing all of the progress that they've made. I mean, it's the way that I frame it is this. There are people who for their whole life, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years for their whole life have been unhealthy. They've been out of shape. They haven't eaten well. They haven't exercised. And at 60 years old, they decide it's time. I need to make a change. Maybe they have a heart attack. Maybe they get they're pre-diabetic. Maybe they are actually diabetic. Maybe one of their friends dies. Who knows? Something happens. And then on a dime, they change. And after 60 years of not working out and not eating well and being very overweight, they make a change. And then in a matter of a couple of years, they look like a completely different person. They look completely different. They're super healthy. It's after 60 years of their entire life. And you're worried that after a week or a month or a year of not treating yourself well, that you ruined all your progress. Like, it's fucking stupid to the highest degree of stupidity. It makes zero sense. Because all you have to do is just get back on track and be consistent. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. And if someone can spend 60 years of their entire fucking life not focusing on this, and then in a very short time frame completely change everything, then you could have a week or a month off and it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. No, it is how it is, like, but it's just that our mind, we are consistently thinking like that. What if I can't be perfect? Like I have lost now a lot of weight, and if I go out for vacation for a week, I'm going to lose and gain all lost weight back. And which obviously, when you really think it, it's not that's not going to be the case. So I want to go deeper a little bit with you on how to stop binge eating and emotional eating. I know it's a large topic, but I hope we can get through some kind of things and get some practical tips, because I think you are honestly one of the best persons who I have learned this and different kind of strategies for binge eating. And you had, I think, at some point of your life, you had some kind of binge eating issues, right?
Yeah. From wrestling. Wrestling is what caused it. Not wrestling per se, cutting weight for wrestling is what caused it. So from 14 until about 21, I had severe binge eating issues, anorexia, slight bulimia. I had some real disordered eating habits as a young kid.
Yeah. So what kind of what are like some common triggers, like or underlying causes of binge eating and emotional eating that people should be aware of? Like, how you know that you are actually struggling with those kind of things?
Yeah, so I'll say there are many reasons why someone might binge eat. There are many reasons. And some of the reasons are outside the scope of simply a relationship with food or your body. One of the more common ones is actually some type of trauma in your past, some type of abuse. There's many different reasons. And for that type of binge eating, I want to make it very clear that's not my specialty, and that's like outside of my scope. And I would strongly urge you to seek therapy and mental health help, because that's a different ballgame. When we're coming from a disordered relationship with food, and specifically around like body image type binge eating, or just not liking how you look, or wanting to lose weight and struggling with binging and restricting, these are the things that I'm much more versed in.
No, that's what I wanted to talk. Not going like because we are not some specialists, and if there is like really some issues, you should really go. But this is like more kind of like a dieter type who have been kind of trying to lose weight their whole life, and always eating. If I don't call it maybe binge eating, maybe it's called like overeating and emotional eating.
So what I would say is, you bring up a great point, which is, what is binge eating? What's the difference between binging and overeating, right? And I think it's important to clarify, because some people, they don't know if they're binging or not. And what I'll say is this: if you're binge eating, you'll know it. There's no question about it. And the way that I can describe the difference between binge eating and overeating is overeating, you're just consistently eating more than you should. But there's not much like there. I'll tell you what binge eating is like. Binge eating is when you're already full, oftentimes when no one else is around, you'll deliberately stay up and wait until everyone else is asleep, or there's no one else around, or you will say no to going out to eat with other people because you don't want to eat in front of them. When you're all alone, oftentimes late at night and alone, you will eat unbelievable amounts of food, and it will be seemingly uncontrollable. You will feel disgustingly full, and every bite that you put in your mouth, you'll say, I want to stop. I want to stop. I want to stop. I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be doing this. It hurts you. It doesn't feel good, but you feel like you can't stop no matter what. And you can easily put away 5, 10, 15,000 calories away. It's not having a few extra bites of chocolate cake at dinner. That's slightly overeating. Binge eating is a seemingly uncontrollable urge to eat significantly past the point of discomfort. And there's a word that I'm throwing in there that's very deliberate, is seemingly uncontrollable. Seemingly. The reason that this word is so important is because it is controllable. It's just you feel like it isn't. In the same way, like this is in the same way that alcoholism, someone has this urge to drink alcohol, which is a pretty shitty way of describing what an alcoholic feels like, but they have an intense urge to drink. They feel like they can't stop. They absolutely can. And sometimes they need help in order to do it, but they can stop. Same thing with binge eating. You feel like no matter what, you can't stop. And that's why it's so difficult to break that cycle, because it feels like it's overwhelming, like it's insurmountable. So that's why I always say seemingly, because it feels like you can't, but you actually can.
Yeah. And this is if you are having those feelings, if you think that you are binging, then we are not the guys who should help you. If it's like that is time to get some, you gotta get the therapist and some professional help who is more educated with this.
And they have therapists who specialize in binge eating recovery. It's a whole specialty. It's not just a regular therapist. If you could either go through your insurance, or you could just ask the therapist and say like, hey, do you have a therapist who specializes in binge eating recovery? And they absolutely exist.
So what kind of strategies, if you want to identify, like if you are now, you know that you are not a binge eater, you are kind of overeating or struggling with emotional eating. So what kind of strategies you recommend to identifying and addressing those things?
Yeah, I think there are so many. There are so many. I think one of them is just simply becoming more aware of what and how much you're eating. And that's why I think one of the first things that I recommend people do is you don't even have to change what you eat. You don't have to add new foods in or take anything out. I just want you to write it down. Everything that you eat, I just want you to write it. Just put it into a log. Oftentimes, because when people eat, they're unaware. They're like, it's almost just like I'm watching TV or whatever it is, and they'll just be eating without giving it much thought. But as soon as you start writing down what you're eating, you don't even have to track the calories. Just write down, like, I don't know, kettle corn or ice cream sandwich, whatever the fuck it is, write it down. And oftentimes as you're writing it, you might be like, you know what? I don't want this. And then you scratch it out and then you put it away. And that is, in my opinion, one of the simplest, easiest, and most readily available for everyone, just to become more aware of what you're putting in your mouth.
I love that advice. And actually funny that you took it up. Like I was yesterday on Jay Smith's podcast, and he asked me that what I would recommend somebody as a first step. Is that before, like people usually they wait to say that, okay, here is your goals, do this, do this, do this. So that no, first step is always to become aware what you are currently doing. And then when you are aware what you are currently doing, it's so much easier to start making some kind of sustainable adjustments what to do. And this is I love that you took it up, and it's like you said, you don't have to track calories, but somehow becoming aware, just writing it down or doing something else. So is there some like if somebody want to develop like a healthier relationship with food and overcome that urge to eat emotionally or overeat, what kind of strategies do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch more. Off the top of my head, one of the ones that I will most commonly recommend is I'll combine two in one right now. I have something, I call it the 20-minute rule. It's basically where nothing is off limits. If in your mind you're like, hey, I want to have French fries, cool. You're allowed to have French fries. It's totally fine. Just do me a favor, put the timer on for 20 minutes. If after 20 minutes, and you could do whatever you want, you could watch TV, you could call a friend, call someone, tell them you love them, go on a walk. I don't give a shit. Put the timer on for 20 minutes and then do something else. If at the end of those 20 minutes, you still want to have the food, go for it. It's totally fine. If, however, at the end of the 20 minutes, you don't want it, well, great. Now you don't have to have it. And the key part here is making sure you know and internalize it's not off limits. You're allowed to have it. Just wait 20 minutes. And oftentimes that delay, that time between from when you want it to when you actually are deciding if you're going to have it, that delay is enough to say, like, you know what, it's actually not worth it. I'm really not craving it anymore. It was an impulse and I don't want it. Another way that I use this same method is I call it the apple test, where basically, let's say you want French fries or you want something sweet. Let's say you want an ice cream sandwich, and you ask yourself first, am I hungry enough to eat an apple? And if you are hungry enough to eat an apple, cool, eat the apple first. If after you have the apple, you still want the ice cream sandwich, cool, go for it, have it. But if after the apple, you're like, you know what, I don't really even want it anymore, great, now you don't have to have it. And there's always people who are like, well, what if I don't like apples ever? Fine, I don't give a shit. Use any fruit that you want. It could be a banana, it could be an orange, could be watermelon, could be grapes. I don't give a shit. Pick a fruit that is your that test. Blueberry test, watermelon test, banana test. And if you're not hungry enough to eat it, then you're not hungry enough to eat the other thing.
Yeah, no, I love it. Those are very, very good advice. So then what about the role of like physical activity and exercise? Like if you are fighting against that emotional eating or overeating, what you would say, that should you exercise or not, or what kind of role is that exercise part playing?
So for me, exercise should always be done just because it's good for you. It's like, in fact, it's, if you look across the longest living, healthiest populations in the world, they have very different diets, whether we're talking about Okinawans in Japan or Italians in Italy. They have very different diets, but they're among the longest living populations. So the common denominator is not necessarily what they're eating, but their movement. It's their exercise. And so I want someone to exercise not as a punishment for eating too much. I want them to exercise because it's good for their health. So it's separating exercise from food is very important. You don't exercise to punish yourself for eating too much, right? And you don't starve yourself because you didn't work out. You eat well because it's important, and you exercise because it's important. And that's it.
Awesome. So before wrapping up this episode, do you have any final tips or advice for listeners who want to break free from emotional eating habits and overeating?
What I would say is, if you're listening to this podcast, you have the most amazing coach in Turo. He's absolutely incredible. He's unbelievably qualified. And if you have not worked with him, I strongly urge you to reach out to Turo. Turo, put your email in the description. Make sure you reach out to him. Do coaching with him. He does online coaching, and he's did not tell me to say this at all. I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. I know Turo. I've worked with him. He's an amazing coach. If you want someone to help you with your nutrition, with your exercise and relationship with food, reach out to him. Trust me, you will not regret it.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your words. And Jordan, people can find you from Syatt Fitness everywhere, all social platforms. Jordan Syatt mini podcast. What else? Your inner circle is a community where I was also personally part of and loved those workouts and community what he have built. I think that's my goal someday, to build even close to that kind of warm community what you have been able to build. So anything else you want to add?
That's it. I don't even like, if you want to find my content, amazing, but hire Turo. Turo's number one. Trust me, if you're struggling with your nutrition, with your workouts, relationship with food, hire Turo. Stop waiting. Stop putting it off. Go do that right now.
Thank you so much for your time, Jordan. Really, really appreciate. Also a pleasure to have you in my show, and we stay in touch.
Thank you, brother. Have a great one.
Hold up, friend. Do you love FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast? If so, the best way to say thank you is to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review on iTunes. I know every podcaster wants you to leave a review, but it's because those reviews help the podcast to reach more people. I truly want to know what you think, and if this particular episode resonated with you, would you also please share it? Either send a link to someone who you think will find it valuable, or take a screenshot and post it into your social media and tell your friends and family why they should listen it. Make sure you tag me so I can hear your feedback and give you a little love. And if you aren't already following me on Instagram or TikTok, that's the perfect time to hit that follow button. Thank you for being here and listening to FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast.